What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with Eric Romoff. We are here for the Thursday night kickoff for NFL Week 1 here. Eric, we have waited a long time for the NFL season to start. All of the preparation going from the NFL draft to the offseason to the free agency, the NFL draft guide, the best ball season. But regular season NFL is finally here, man. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. You did a great job detailing all of the work that builds up to this moment, right? This is the result of all of the preparation. The way that this season plays out is really just the culmination of that, right? So can't believe that we are about an hour away. And what a way to kick off week 1, right? Got the AFC championship matchup with the defending champion Chiefs facing off against the Ravens. Week 1 is it's coming out with a bang.
Yeah, no kidding, right? We got the banner ceremony. Obviously, Taylor Swift is going to be in the building. Obviously, for those still following the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, attraction that is certainly going to be spotlighted and headlined as it was throughout the offseason with Kelce traveling around the world for the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. Eric, are you a Taylor Swift fan? Well, where do you rank yourself there?
Oh man, you're throwing the hard-hitting questions right off the rip. I am neutral to positive on on Taylor Swift. I enjoy a lot of her music. I don't like how much fanfare has surrounded her around the game, but I'm also not mad about it either.
Right. So, guys, we're here. Obviously, Thursday Night Football. We'll talk about tonight's game. We'll go over some of our favorite DFS plays. We'll certainly be there to help you guys out with any bets you have. We have our underdog prize picks and sleeper picks out there for Thursday football. Of course, we see your chat all popping up there on the right side. If you guys are over on YouTube, you want to get in that chat, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button. It's completely free to do. Just hit that subscribe button. You can get into that chat. You can leave your questions, your comments. Eric and I are here to help you guys out, set your lineups for this week, of course, and hopefully set you guys on the right path to victory for over on X. Hop in there, drop your questions in, go over to the YouTube channel as well, and drop your questions here. Hit that like and subscribe. Again, a free way to support the work we do here. Before we get to all these questions, Eric, you see them starting to pile in here. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Obviously, you've been with Pros with Joe's charity. We've all been heavily involved with that here over at Fantasy Alarm, but now you're joining the family this year. You're doing the wide receiver cornerback matchup report, which is one of the biggest articles we have on site. Why don't you kind of intro yourself to those who maybe are unfamiliar with what you've been doing so far?
Man, I think you hit a lot of the big points. I've been kicking around in this fantasy space since 2018 and creating content regularly since 2020. The biggest undertaking that I've got under my belt is the aforementioned Pros with Joe's Charity League. We just wrapped up drafting and fundraising for year number 5. We've raised about $90,000 over the years, which is kind of wild to say out loud. And also, we've created a bunch of cool memories and experiences and friendships. A lot of former pros converting over to Joe's. A lot of shows that have been born out of that league. So definitely the passion project for me. But by and large, when I'm not keeping the lights on over there, a lot of times I like to dive into individual matchups, right? So the wide receiver cornerback matchup article is a perfect fit for me. I also like to go into the trenches and look at some O-line and D-line matchups, see how that might bleed into time in the pocket or into the running game. So like to zoom in a little bit in terms of my style of analysis.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, those of you I know we've already getting some questions in there. That wide receiver cornerback matchup report is so key to figuring out, especially your DFS lineups, what matchups to attack from week to week spots here. Sometimes you'll find that value wide receiver in that juicy matchup that you can kind of plug into your lineups and help you spend up in other areas. So excited to see that come out here from Eric. And again, guys, we appreciate you all tuning in. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, we have our 7-day free trial going on right now. If you go to fantasyalarm.com/win right now, you get a 7-day free trial when you sign up for either the monthly or annual subscription package. So try us out. Get week 1 on us. You'll obviously win. It'll pay for itself. Come back week 2, week 3, week 4. 2 years ago, we had a millionaire winner on FanDuel. A single bullet in the $5 Millionaire Mike took down the FanDuel Millie contest over at Fantasy Alarm. He's now a lifetime subscriber. So obviously plenty of content for you guys coming out to win, but try this for free right now here over at fantasyalarm.com/win. Eric, thoughts on tonight's matchup? We got Ravens, we got Chiefs, big signing in the offseason. Derrick Henry coming over to Baltimore. For years, it seems like every year, the saying around the fantasy industry is, this is the year Derrick Henry falls off. This is the year, and then he just doesn't fall off. He now moves into a Todd Monken offense. Lamar Jackson, they're going to want to run the football. Is this the year that Derrick Henry falls off, or are you buying into shares of him this season?
Yeah, definitely buying into shares of Derrick Henry. Not nearly as much as I would like, right? He was one of the players over the last week or two where I was looking at my exposures and realized I didn't have quite as many shares as I intended to. So went out and did my best to rectify that in best ball over the course of the last few weeks. But, for me, obviously talent is a huge factor in a player's contribution in terms of fantasy, but also opportunity plays a pretty big role, right? So even though we're getting at an age where most NFL running backs and certainly plenty of humans are starting to decline a little bit, even if that starts to show its face incrementally with Derrick Henry, the opportunity in front of him is so great that I still think he is going to be a big time contributor to fantasy championships this year. I mean, this is almost a tailor-made situation for him. I'm so excited to see how it plays out this year.
Yeah, 100% in agreement with you as well. Knowing that last year, Gus Edwards had, the 13 rushing touchdowns. That they're not shy about feeding their running backs in the red zone, kind of take some of that injury risk away. Lamar Jackson still is going to have his, but now you have an upgrade at the running back position, one of the best red zone running backs, probably of our generation, right? In Derrick Henry, hard to take that man down inside the 5. So then you have on the flip side, are you worried about any Super Bowl hangover when it comes to the Chiefs?
No, not necessarily, right? I mean, at this point, it's fair to say that the Chiefs are one of, if not the most well-run organization top to bottom in the NFL, right? So, if there is a bit of a hangover, I think it would impact them the least out of any organization, especially given the fact that they've been here before, right? They are accustomed to opening up a season and hanging a banner and trying to keep that momentum moving, right? I think if there's anything that sort of inhibits their effectiveness is a little bit more about some of the players they saw head out the door over the course of the offseason and just how categorically different this offense shapes up to be this year comparatively to last year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, they brought in Hollywood Brown, not going to be active for tonight's game, but they've continued their search for that field stretcher ever since Tyreek Hill left. They've drafted a couple of guys that haven't necessarily popped quite yet. Obviously, this year in the first round, of course. Now, help me out with the first round wide receiver Xavier Worthy. They drafted a super speedster to stretch the field. They have Rashee Rice. Is the running back position, obviously Samaje Perine gets signed, and now sort of there was a lot of helium on the Perine value in drafts heading into opening night. Now there's questions, how involved is he going to be? Their backfield right now is Isaiah Pacheco, Samaje Perine, and undrafted Carson Steele. That is it. Do you think we just see a big, heavy workload for Isaiah Pacheco, or do we think we actually see a decent snap share and involvement of Samaje Perine here tonight?
Yeah, all told, I think, especially in this first game, it's going to be the Isaiah Pacheco show, right? Samaje Perine is a veteran. They brought him in after he was cut by another team, so he's very much so ramping up into this offense and categorically ramping up into one of the more complex offensive schemes under Matt Nagy, right? So we're going to be looking at a bit of a learning curve for him to get fully acclimated into that system. But some of the things that they brought him in to do, I think he can contribute right away, right? I think he can come in and pass protect fairly well. He can be reliable in that regard. There's going to be situations where they work him in, even in this first week's game. But in terms of just opportunity share, vast majority in my book is going to Isaiah Pacheco this week. And we're probably going to see Perine kind of inch into that a little bit more week over week, but not to the point where he overtakes Pacheco or anything really
Yeah,
close to that
no,
even.
for sure. No, I don't think there's an overtake. But he is like you said, he's a kind of a really known as a pass catching back, and Pacheco showed the ability to obviously catch football last year when they needed him to. But bringing in sort of a specialist like that in P Ryan, a veteran as you mentioned, someone that probably been around the game long enough, can get plugged into a system and pick things up, probably generally pretty quickly. Very curious to see how quickly he does get involved here tonight. This is Kansas City. They're at home again, banner raising ceremony. They're giving 2.5 as a home favorite here. Total 46.5. Do you have any particular leans in which way you were going with this one?
Yeah, this is one that I've actually waffled on a bit. I feel the best about the under on the point total there. I think if we look at both of these teams, they should have fairly stout defenses in terms of where they rank in the NFL this year, and also week one, especially in the world of a shortened preseason, is kind of an extension of the preseason, right? These guys aren't
Yeah.
going to be in midseason form. They're still installing their offense. They're still getting accustomed to one another, right? So I don't know if they're going to be firing on all cylinders. So week one in general, I tend to err on the side of unders for the point total, and specifically with two pretty tough defenses matching up, I could see this one being a slugfest and coming into the under.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of agree with you again. Knowing that what their defense is like, knowing how the Ravens want to run their offense as well. When I did my write-ups here, I liked the Derrick Henry over 15.5 in some places, 16.5 in others for his rushing attempts. The other team that likes to run the football, but also the best, they always say the best defense to keep that offense out the field is to control the ball yourself. Best way to do that is to kill the clock with the running game. So if you're limiting the amount of time that Patrick Mahomes has to score points, and you yourself are on the ground killing clock, going to tend to lean towards the under. So I kind of agree with you there. I do think the Chiefs will pull this one out. That they did lose last year to the Lions, and everybody kind of thought that was a bit of a fluke, but the Lions certainly proved that they were worthy of that win, and the Chiefs ultimately win the Super Bowl. But they had kind of an up and down regular season. So I'm still leaning Chiefs here. I think they'll take it with the banner raiser ceremony, but I'm with you. I think the under comes in slightly on this one as well. Guys, we appreciate all your comments. We'll get to them in order, so you do not need to post them in more than once. I promise you that. But as you can see, they're popping up here on the screen. If you're not yet a subscriber to our Fantasy Slam YouTube channel, it's free. All you got to do is hit that red subscribe button. You'll be able to leave a comment in the chat here today, and we'll help you get your lineup set. Seasonal DFS betting. We're here to help you guys out. Hal popping in saying it's football day. Yeah, we have certainly waited long enough for that. We even have Friday football tomorrow. We can answer some of those questions if you got them as well. Albert popping in saying hello. Our guy Chris Diaz saying he's got $200K to first on the FanDuel Showdown slate tonight. I know that he was talking a lot about that during our baseball shows this week, getting ready for the Showdown. Are you a big Showdown player, Eric?
Yeah, I like Showdown quite a bit. I've covered and written up Showdown slates for a few years in the past, and it's a format that originally I wasn't too keen on, but it's one that I think there's a rhythm to, right? Candidly, to try to go out and pop a big GPP win in Showdown is incredibly hard. But I like to use Showdown as an opportunity to go in and kind of insulate my bankroll, right? I play a lot of large field, single entry, double ups when it comes to Showdown. So that way I can have a little bit more money at my disposal when we get to the main slate.
Yeah, there's nothing better than winning a Showdown with you and 750,000 of your best friends splitting that that first place prize, right? You're like, I came in first and I won $3.85. So, but obviously there are many ways to build a winning lineup when it comes to Showdown slates. And I know Chris, I've seen some of his other comments in there. He's got quite a few entries into that. Hal says, are we getting a few more points than last game? Seems like week one trends to the under. Like I said, you and I both like the under on this game. So wouldn't it be too surprising if that's the way that one goes? Teams and offenses are feeling themselves out. They have one less preseason game now. They've changed the way practices and walkthroughs can happen. So yeah, wouldn't shock me. Plus, again, the Chiefs maybe have a little bit of an adrenaline dump, coming off their Super Bowl with the banner raising ceremony and all that. And the Ravens obviously looking to get ready to go, but they're on the road here. So we do like the under
If we're
Eric,
talking about more points than the championship game, I think we're pretty comfortable saying more
yeah,
than 27 total, right? But not
yeah,
quite up
yeah.
into the mid 40s for
Was
me.
that a bad weather game? Or was the game before that one the bad weather game that they played in? I couldn't forget if there was one of those games where it was pretty snowy and
Well,
cold.
the craziest game for them was the wild card round game where they hosted Miami, and
That's what it was.
it was well
Okay.
into the negative
Yeah,
wind chill
negatives.
temperatures, and people were getting
Yeah.
frostbite at the stadium and everything.
Albert tossing you a salute.
My guy.
Rod saying, let's go. Love Fantasyland. We love you, Rod. I know you're a staple in our chats here. Hal drafted Chase and Swift, named his team Chase and Swifties.
Smart.
Taylor Swift fan. Not bad. Jamar Chase saga. Where are you on that? Do you think think he's suiting up? Think he's got a contract waiting for him to go? Where are you there?
I do think that he's suiting up. I don't think he's got a contract change coming this season. He's still got 2 years left on his deal,
Yeah.
right? I think more than anything, you think about these holdouts or hold-ins. Overwhelmingly, like a vast majority of the time, they never actually result in anything that's going to impact on-field production, right? For as displeased as these guys might be with their current circumstance, they're very, very rarely actually going to give up game checks for that. So if I had to prognosticate a little bit, I think that there are conversations happening inside the front office of the Cincinnati Bengals with Jamar Chase, letting him know that a big payday is coming. It's just not coming quite yet, right? And in turn, he'll be out on the field pretty quickly.
You saw how they haggled, and ultimately, T. Higgins had to sign the 1-year deal. So you got to wonder, are the Bengals going to just be Bengals here and kind of mess around with their top tier plays? I mean, they drafted, Jermaine Burton in the 3rd round. Now you're seeing reports he may not even play this year because of his attitude and off the field and in the locker room troubles. Not paying. Supposedly reports coming out that he's not paying attention in meetings. And he obviously had some character issues going into the draft. They were willing to take that risk, but now they're maybe down another receiver. So if something was to happen with Chase where he decides to hold out or whatnot, we'll be pretty interested to see the way that Bengals offense moves here. Rod's got a couple quick questions for us. Start Cincy and Bears over Baltimore. So let's start Cincy or Bears over Baltimore D, I guess, is the question. Which way would you go?
I guess I would. Given those options, I would probably sit down the Ravens tonight. I mean, Cincinnati against your hapless New England Patriots is one of the juiciest matchups.
I'm a realistic Patriots fan. Okay, so I understand where my team's at the moment.
Yeah. So for me, I guess of those three, I'm leaning towards Cincinnati. But moreover, the question I would have is, are you rostering 3 defenses? And if you are, you should change that, and you should find some upside on the back of your bench by letting probably 2 of those go.
I would agree with you. I didn't even put that one together as quickly as you did there. So I know that there's not both, 2 different leagues. There we go. So he's at Cincy and Baltimore, and he's at the Bears and Baltimore. Would you play the Bears? The Bears are at home against Tennessee. Not terrible, right?
Yeah,
That's Cincy home versus Patriots. So.
In the case of the Bears, I think I would stick with Baltimore with that decision. We have both detailed our lean towards the under in this game, and there are so many playmakers on the Ravens side, right? In today's day and age of DST scoring, you're really chasing turnovers and in turn defensive touchdowns. I think you've got a better chance to do that with playmakers. Honestly, I mean, both these teams, the Bears and the Ravens, are right next to each other in the middle of the pack for me in my defensive rankings. So, flip a coin. If you have a player that you like on either defensive side more than the other, that can be a tiebreaker. But really, I think you're kind of splitting hairs, and I'll err on the side of what I believe to be the more talented defense, which is Baltimore in this case.
Yeah, and listen, one of the big factors, and many had wondered, with the change in the kickoff rules here, with sort of the return zone and the blocking, we saw some big returns during the preseason here that you may see some special team scoring, defensive scoring there. So, if you think you got a guy maybe with a special team edge, Cordero Patterson's out there in Pittsburgh now, probably just the return kicks, right? And despite Thomas saying he's going to be
those
involved.
Bears even, right? Velus Jones, recently converted running back. He looks to be a nice little Scott Fishbowl stash as well. He's going to be the primary punt and kick returner. So it should be fun to watch how these new rules impact the fantasy game, right?
Exactly. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the defensive plays there. And then Rod's second question, number 2, Rice, DJ Moore, and Harrison. So we need 2 of Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, and the rookie Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh wow, this one is neck and neck and neck. I've essentially got them back to back to back. For me, I would actually lean with Marvin Harrison and Rashee Rice, but we're talking about a singular spot between Moore and Rice. So those are the 2 highest ranked. For as much of a focal point as we project Rashee Rice to be in this week 1 matchup, we're leaning towards the under. He has arguably one of the toughest defenses or one of the toughest matchups in the secondary. Should be getting a lot of attention from the Ravens secondary. So kind of have to split hairs for these razor thin choices, but would err on that side.
Yeah, usually we say this is when you say you drafted well there, sir. If you're really needing to decide between 2 of those 3, fortunate spot you find yourself in. Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, obviously comes in the league with all the fanfare. We've all been kind of tracking him now for a couple of years where he was at Ohio State. Does he come in the league and sort of continue the trend of just like elite rookie wide receivers kind of come in and make some big plays right away to you?
Yeah, I think he can, right? Part of it is he's going to step into a pretty big opportunity, right? There's a lot of vacated targets, and just in general, looking at his addition to this offense, he brings a skill set that they haven't really had in quite some time, right? So he steps into a vacuum where he should get peppered with targets, and he has the skill set to do a lot with him at the NFL level, right? Obviously, there's always a chance of there being a bit of a learning curve moving from the college ranks up to the pros, but in terms of kind of ready-made top prospect wide receiver types. I mean, it's hard to find one that fits the mold better than Marvin Harrison Jr. And in this week in particular, he should see the majority of his snaps in Rasul Douglas's coverage. Rasul Douglas allowed almost a 78% catch rate and nearly 20 yards per reception. So if he's getting peppered with targets, he's hauling in about 78% of them, and those targets are going downfield. That sets up for a pretty big week 1 for Maserati Marv.
Sounds like a guy who's been doing the wide receiver quarterback matchup report there, giving you a nice little breakdown of maybe what's to come on Fantasy Alarm here. Hal wants to know any IDP props. I'm looking at a couple that I think are maybe a bit interesting, but I haven't really dug too deep. So take these lightly. You got Chris Jones for 1/4 of a sack. If you think Lamar Jackson runs around in that pocket, Chris Jones, one of the best sackmen in the NFL, that's minus 135 on the 1/4 sack. So I think you could maybe take. I didn't even know you could get 1/4 sack. So if you get 1/4 sacks there, or half. It's a 1/4 sack. I don't know. Take the Chris Jones minus 125. Eric, you do any IDP betting, anything like that for you?
Not a ton, no. So I am located in the lovely state of Texas, which will be the last state in the union to legalize sports gambling or anything else fun. So a lot of my exposure to IDP betting is through over-under platforms like Prize Picks, or Underdogs, or what have you, right? And typically that tab is a little bit thin in terms of the menu, right? So I like the Chris Jones take there. I'm not sure if you have specific lines around passes broken up or receptions allowed, but if so, let us know in the chat. There are probably a couple of corners in this.
Yeah, if you're looking at a couple of props, throw them out to us and we can kind of give you our takes. I'll say this: I think both of these teams are going to be pretty run heavy. Go find the team's tackle leader from last year and then throw him in a play there. So Hal says 1/4 sacks. If he splits a sack, it still wins. Works. Takes for me half a sack. That's what it is. So if he gets a half a sack, he wins. Yeah. I think Chris Jones can get a half a sack tonight in that pocket, right? He's an elite pass rusher there. So Chris Diaz has Derrick Henry as his MVP. He's flexing Mahomes, Andrews. He's got P. Ryan in there. He's going with the newly paid kicker, Harrison Butker, here tonight. Thoughts on the showdown construction here?
I kind of like it. So Henry is going to be a pretty popular captain or MVP, but You're looking at a short list of guys who can reasonably project to score the most points on the slate, and he is among those guys, right? So checking the box there. You're definitely bringing up your floor with Patrick Mahomes at the flex. What I like most about this is you're really telling a pretty clear story with this build, right? You have Derrick Henry at MVP, and you don't have Lamar Jackson anywhere else in your lineup, right? So you are banking on a bust here, and if that comes to pass, just given the incredible rostership that we see for quarterbacks in showdown slates generally, you're fading one of the more popular players, and you are getting direct leverage off of that failure with your MVP. So I think this build has a lot of legs if this game script comes to pass.
Yeah, it feels like this is obviously a Ravens lead type game strip, right? Because you got Samaje Perine out there thinking if they're in the 2-minute drill, if they're got kind of passing late in that game, that he would be out there over Pacheco to sort of get those check downs. And then obviously Butker there, big leg, can kick the field goals at the end of that game. So Rod, follow-up question from him here: Christian Watson or Zay Flowers in a PPR league?
Ooh, I would actually I would err on the side of Christian Watson. These two are also fairly close here. With Zay Flowers, he's going to have a pretty tough matchup defensively. Again, we think this game is going to be on the lower scoring side. Yeah. And, whenever we're talking about two guys that don't really have much of a floor, I tend to err on the side of the guy who's got a bit more ceiling. And week one, Christian Watson will probably be the healthiest version of Christian Watson that we see. So this is your opportunity to fire him up and try to reach some of that upside.
Yeah, listen, I've been a buyer of Christian Watson, obviously the last couple of years, and it's worked the one week, and then the injuries have really plagued him. He supposedly has solved the muscle density problems that he was dealing with in his legs, and we'll see, right? Big downfield guy. I was super bullish on Jordan Love this year in best ball drafts. Just where he was going one for ADP, but he finished the year, his final 9 games last year. It's like 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and completing 68% of his passes. I mean, he really settled in after that rough start. And if he's going to have the healthiest receiver group, like you said, with Watson, Doubs, and Reed right away, some chances for him to make some plays there. Chris says he's got 12 lineups in his showdown lineup there. Hal saying you got to go back to 1987 to say how good the Lions and Chiefs are now. The last time the Lions were a good team was 87. They have Sanders back then, maybe, possibly. I don't know. I'm not that old. I was born in 88, Eric, so missed that one by a year. Derek's got Godwin or Rice at wide receiver.
Let's see.
The Buccaneers home versus Washington here.
Yeah. So I've got Rashee Rice a fair amount higher, a good 10, 11 spots higher in my rankings. I am so intrigued by the idea of Chris Godwin moving back to the slot, but I think I want to see it before anything else. Sure. So I'll err on the side of Rice, but this is realistically a decision that you're probably going to be making all year long, and one that I might have a different answer for in a couple of weeks if we see Godwin actually occupy that slot role. Yeah,
listen, the one thing with Godwin last year, obviously, that was disappointing was just the touchdowns. He only had 2. He had a great year from a yardage and reception standpoint. Now they're moving him back in, like you said, to the slot where he should be just right there in the face of Baker Mayfield to catch those passes over the middle. But the difference here, Rashee Rice is considered the number 1. I know Kelsey exists, but Mike Evans is the guy. And that Commander secondary is still going to be pretty bad. So I could see more Rice in terms of volume here, where Evans is the one probably tears it up. And then his second part of this is a 6-point passing touchdown league. He's got Trevor Lawrence or Jaden Daniels.
For me, it's Jaden Daniels. I know that with the 6-point passing touchdown, it moves Trevor a little bit closer to Jaden Daniels. But for me, especially at these onesie positions, right, quarterbacks, tight ends, if we're talking about guys that are kind of right on the cusp of that top 12-ish range, I'm always going to fire towards the upside. And Jaden Daniels categorically has that in spades over Trevor Lawrence. And this matchup against Tampa Bay should be pretty favorable. I think this whole game environment is an interesting one to look at from a DFS standpoint. I think we can see a lot of points go on the board specifically thanks to these two defenses. Right. So if that comes to pass, Jaden Daniels should be doing a fair amount of scoring this week.
Yeah, the one thing with Daniels we talk a lot about is like he doesn't have to put up the passing numbers that have the fantasy value. Even you mentioned it is a 6-point passing touchdown league. He can throw for touchdowns, but his value is he's going to go out there and maybe run for 80 and a score. If he throws for another 185, 200 and a touchdown, he's going to just blow by whatever Lawrence is going to do, unless Lawrence goes out there, 300 and a couple of scores there. Now, Jacksonville and Miami, they are in the highest game total on the board. It's 49.5. Jacksonville is starting the year on the road there in Miami. It's a 3.5 point spread, I think. So, they are expecting a little bit of a shootout, but, again, you're looking at that Jacksonville offense. They liked to run the ball a lot last year with Travis Etienne. We don't really know if Christian Kirk's 100%. He's kind of had that questionable tag all preseason on him, Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas. So some question marks to see on that Jacksonville offense. So I'll go with the ride with Jaden Daniels as well. Hal saying Pirine looked bad in Denver. Was that just the Denver offense? Probably. Not much went right for Denver last year, so it could have a lot to do with it. Paul, I want to play one of the two, Pacheco or Rice, half-point PPR.
I would err on the side of Pacheco here. I think we're going to be looking at a bit more of the ground game being featured all around, and like we talked about off the top, I mean, almost all of this workload should be Pacheco's for the having, right? So a little bit more of a floor play than a ceiling play. But when we're talking about a single flex spot or a single position to fill in, I like to go towards guys that not only have the floor but also have a decent amount of upside, and that's Pacheco of the two.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Again, when it comes down to the rushing upside, and just the touch volume, I think you're going to get from Pacheco. Again, I took the over 14.5 carries for him there as well tonight. This is a guy that got a ton of volume last year, and there's just nobody really behind him there. So I'm with you there on the Pacheco play. Chris saying he's got a KC stack or Baltimore stack. He's going to break us off a piece of the 200K when he wins. Well, I guess we got to pick right here. Do we want a KC stack or the Baltimore stack here? We got to pick one side of it.
I mean, I would think if we're trying to win 200K, we have to go with the Baltimore stack, right? This KC stack is going to be pretty popular, especially with Xavier Worthy's price tag.
Right.
So I think there are just more ways to get different, but in a fashion that still has a fair amount of upside overall, right?
Yeah.
Rashad Bateman is not going to draw very much rostership tonight, for example. So there are just more ways from a game theory standpoint for you to actually bink that top prize. So,
would you roster Justice Hill tonight?
Yeah, I mean, not if I'm firing a single entry bullet, right? But if you're going to put a portfolio of builds out there, I think there's definitely some exposure for Justice Hill baked into that, right? Most of the running back ownership is going to be split pretty evenly across Pacheco and Derrick Henry. So getting any of the guys that aren't going to be very popular in that category is a way to get an edge. Pirine's going to steam up a little bit just because of his price tag, right? He's so cheap. You can do so much with the rest of your roster.
Agreed. Power in here saying this could be an important game for whole field advantage. It's crazy to think it's game 1 of week 1, but yeah, come 17 weeks from now that this game right here could tell the story of the 1 seed in the AFC East. Our guy Don is in there. Wondering on DraftKings single entry, do you think you're going to need 2 running backs? Is that tonight? Do you think you need 2 running backs tonight on the single entry showdown?
If we're talking about single entry double up, I don't think you need to go there. If we're talking about a tournament, I think you can pull it off, right? I don't think that's going to be all that popular of a pairing given the price tag and giving the projected rostership of both these guys, right? It seems like at least my projection is the market is going to choose this or look at this as a binary choice. You're either rostering one or the other. So putting them together, creates a little bit of differentiation overall. If we're talking about double ups again, I tend to go more double quarterback than double running back.
The guys that are going to score the most points generally are the quarterbacks, so that certainly makes some sense there. Power saying Chase will be ready to go. I did see that. I also saw you was out there practicing. Not really concerned, but you never know. It could come Sunday, and he's like, you know what? I don't have my money yet. I don't want to get hurt, and we'll see what happens. We got some Twitch gang in the chat. Do I start Rashee Rice tonight? I already have CeeDee Lamb and Puka Nacua starting. is at Swift in the flex. So would you start Rice over Lamb, Nakua, or Swift this weekend?
I would start Rice over Swift for sure. For as much as we like to follow the money and look at what Chicago paid to bring in DeAndre Swift, the reality is a couple of days before kickoff, nobody truly knows how they're going to use the running backs in this backfield.
Right.
Whereas we've just got a much cleaner projection on Rashee Rice's role, even though it is going to be a bit of a tough matchup this week.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm seemingly more bullish on Swift than some others that I've had conversations with. I think they've been burned a bit by him in the past, but last year he was a useful, running back as part of an offense that, Jalen Hurts obviously took a lot of rushing touchdowns away. If he was in any other offense was able to stay healthy, he might have had a better overall fantasy season. So as long as he can stay healthy this year, I think he's gonna be fine. Yeet 56 from the Twitch gang. Drake London, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers needs 2 for PPR.
London, Smith, and Flowers. It's the first 2 for me by a pretty good margin. Yes, Green Bay has turned over their defensive coaching ranks, but I don't think we're going to see a dramatic shift or uptick in their effectiveness on the defensive side. I think that game is going to be pretty high scoring, and this is the time for Drake London. He finally has an NFL caliber quarterback. If he can't do it now, then when?
Yeah, no excuses anymore for the Atlanta offense, right? I mean, you got rid of Arthur Smith, you brought in a better offensive system and head coach, and now you have the guy that can throw it, Kirk Cousins. Consistently over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns with Minnesota. Obviously throwing to Justin Jefferson, but he's got Drake London, he's got Kyle Pitts, he's got Bijan Robinson. That offense, no excuses not to perform. Best quarterback.
Cousins has shown pretty clearly that he likes to feature his best players on the offensive side, right? So that is Drake London in this case. And London's matchup is pretty juicy, right?
Yeah.
Above average catch rate allowed by his opponent, Dante Jackson. And oh, by the way, Drake London is 6 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier than his primary coverage corner. So I think we might see a couple of yards after the catch in that matchup.
A couple of jump balls downfield to him for sure there. And, there was a lot of people, I don't know how you feel about it, but seeing Kirk Cousins ADP as like QB 16, 17, 18, I was very confused why he was being ranked so low. A lot of people are like, oh, well, he's an older quarterback coming off of the Achilles injury, but he's not a mobile quarterback. That's not like he's not expected to be running around and scrambling. If he's able to kind of sit in the pocket and step and throw, like everything should be good to go. And that's all the reports were, that he was moving around as good as Kirk Cousins moves around, and the arm still worked. The shoulder was fine. So I was happily snagging him late. I don't really draft 2 quarterbacks in most leagues, that are single quarterback leagues that I can make waiver moves. I just draft skill position players and I'll drop one to pick up a quarterback later. But when I was sort of taking chances on like a Jaden Daniels or a Caleb Williams, I was snagging Kirk Cousins as my QB2 as like sort of the safety net there, because this is a guy that has put up top 10 fantasy quarterback seasons from point per game perspectives a couple times over the last few seasons. So expecting some big things there. Hal has Roquan Smith 9.5 tackles and assists, but it's at -185, so super juiced. That's probably a little bit too much. If you can find an alt line, maybe worth taking, but -185. Maybe if you parlay it, if you can parlay some defensive stats, maybe that could help that out. But I don't generally like to go the minus. Anything more than like -130 usually feels even like a little bit too much.
I don't know what operators are in your state, but DK has him at least at -145 at the 9.5. So
yeah,
if you're keen on that bet, you can at least get a better price on it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great shout. I would much prefer. It's still not great, but if you really wanted to bet it, -145.
It's probably a pass for me as well. But if you're locked in, find the best price, right?
A little bit better, yeah, for sure. His solo tackle is 5.5 at -150. I don't like betting assists. His assist was -160. So you're getting his combined at -145, but each individual -160, -154. That almost feels like it's a little better to snag the combined prop there. So and then Paul says it's pouring in Kansas City right now. I don't got a weather report up I didn't think it was supposed to rain. I always defer to our to Kevin Roth there over at Roto Grinders for his weather
No
reports.
doubt.
He doesn't even have this game listed as weather issues. So maybe it's like is it a flash storm or something going on in Kansas City?
It could be. I'm looking at the hour by hour, and according to the internet, it is in fact pouring in Kansas City.
Okay.
What I tend to do after I also defer to Kevin Roth is I tend to look at the wind speed. Right now, it's 9 miles an hour, right? So slippery ball makes things a little bit tricky, but it's not going to hamper the offense the way that a gusting wind quite would. So
Sure.
maybe a slight tick down on the overall effectiveness of the offense, but not something that I would be overly worried about.
Yeah, I mean, we liked the under as it was, right? And we were bullish on the running back. I was a bullish, at least on the running back carries. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
raining and winding. I mean, or windy at all. Then it's going to be certainly a little bit more difficult to throw the football there. So, ride with the running back props there tonight. Any other like key things or takeaways that you're having from tonight's game? Any matchups in particular that you're looking to watch here, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things to keep an eye on, right? Obviously, the usage of Derrick Henry, specifically, in situational a situational context, right? Are they going to keep him on the field when they are in hurry up, when they are on third down or a long down and distance? Are they going to throw the ball to him a little bit more than we saw during his tenure as a Tennessee Titan? That is definitely something that I am keen to watch. From a betting perspective, I'm actually zeroing in on Xavier Worthy's catch line.
Okay.
Right now, I'm finding it at 3.5. I kind of like the over there, even in light of this recent weather reporting. I don't think that we're going to see Xavier Worthy used as deep downfield, or at least exclusively in a downfield way. At least not as much as most people are pontificating out there. Yes, he is absolutely a speedster, but they already have Justin Watson to run their 9 routes, right? He's just
Right.
going to be running a straight line down the sideline every single play. They're not going to have both their guys do that. I think in this offense, they're going to find ways to get the ball into Worthy's hands quickly, probably a fair amount of screens, probably a lot of motion before the snap, and just let his speed be the differentiator there. So wouldn't be surprised at all if we see him catch a lot of passes near the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Inactives are out. Nothing surprising here. Hollywood Brown was obviously ruled out for the Chiefs earlier this week. Devontae Walker is out for Baltimore if you're just looking for like a skill position player. Other than that, generally just a bunch of special teamers or extras there for these teams here. So, quick thoughts here before we get out on the Friday game. We got the Eagles and the Packers. The Eagles and Packers playing in Brazil for that one. The Eagles are 2.5-point favorites. It's a 49 game total there. Which way would you lean that?
So like I mentioned earlier, I think this is a game that can potentially shoot out. I would lean towards the Packers side. I'll take the points here. Much like you, I am also very bullish on what Jordan Love showed us down the stretch run and what I believe he projects to be this season, right? Top to bottom, like if you want to talk about 1 through 5, arguably the best wide receiver core in all of the NFL, and a
Right.
dude that is not afraid to push the ball down the field, to throw the ball to the end zone, right? I mean, if we're going bold takes here before the Thursday night kickoff game, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see Jordan Love lead the NFL in passing touchdowns this year, right? And I think that
Mhm.
starts with this Week 1 game against Philadelphia. Obviously, no real questions about them on the offensive side. They went out and upgraded pretty much everywhere they could upgrade. They bring in Jahan Dotson as a 3, which is an incredible third guy to have out there.
Yep.
Obviously, Saquon Barkley coming in. So I think that this one could very much so shoot out. And call it just general skepticism. I want to see them effectively deploy and use the tush push without Kelsey in the center spot
Sure.
a couple of times before I'm going to, just check the box as a given part of their offense. So, a bit more of a question mark, but whenever that's the case, super, super close game, I'll take the points. And in that case, that puts me on Green Bay.
Yeah, I like Green Bay here as well. And again, I'll go the over. Given that matchup that they got going on there. Again, it's in Brazil. Supposed to be good weather. It's not supposed to be like hot or humid either. It's supposed to be just in the 60s. So really like great football weather there. Happening on there. I guess we got a Romoff update. He must have put it out on his Twitter machine there. I'll have to go check that out. But Power saying rain is already clearing. Drive by kickoff. Perfect.
Just like
and then we got Rice or Olave thinking about taking him out due to the weather. Well, apparently the weather's clearing up. But if you had to pick one of Rice or Olave, where would you go?
The weather is apparently clearing up. I do have Chris Olave ahead of Rashee Rice in my rankings this week. They're in a category where they're still in the same tier, and you're kind of splitting hairs. For me, maybe this is a blind spot. I'm very excited to see what this new Kubiak offense looks like in New Orleans. And Chris Olave, for as much of a polarizing player as he seems to be, all of his underlying stats are there, right? Like it seems like it's just swelling up to the point where at some point he's going to break through and really announce himself as a definitive top 10, if not higher guy.
You're just not scoring enough touchdowns, right? That offense just doesn't score enough. And when they do get in the red zone, they give the ball to freaking Taysom Hill. And it just it throws off the stats for, the rest of their skill position players. It's great for Taysom Hill if you got him in like best ball, but not great for, Kamara or Chris Olave when you get down inside the 10 and they're taking out the actual quarterback to put in Taysom Hill there. So maybe we'll see some changes along those lines. I'm with you. I think Olave certainly has the talent. Nobody's arguing that. He's had some up and down QB play, obviously, and then just the lack of touchdowns has really kept him from breaking into that next tier. And the perception of him overall is just sort of like a meh player. I feel like him and like Michael Pittman have like the world of upside, but they're just kind of in situations where you don't really know if they're in spots to be able to achieve that sort of ceiling level of production.
Absolutely. Right. Guys that I have spent a disproportionate amount of my time this offseason trying to acquire shares of in my dynasty rosters, because that perception is, for me, well off from the reality of how much potential these guys have.
Agreed. Guys, that's going to do it for our show here tonight. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you get it in our Discord. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family right now, we have this 7-day free trial going on. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win when you go and sign up for either the monthly or annual subscription package. You'll see it right there on the screen. It says click here to start your free trial. You get it for 7 days. That means you get our week 1 content on the house. Sign up for week 2 following that because, of course, you'll want to hang with us here. Hit that like, hit that subscribe to our YouTube channel and over on X. Free way to support the work we do here. Coop and I will be back live on Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, taking you through the inactive period at noon to get you guys ready for NFL Week 1 Sunday slate. Eric, of course, you and I will be here every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time to get you guys ready for the week. So we appreciate you all stopping in. Lexton gets our last question of the day. Snuck it in under the wire. Wants us to rate his trio. Amon-Ra, Marvin Harrison, or Drake London. I mean, it's good. Right?
You done good. The real question is rate on what sort of scale? Are we talking like letter grade 1 through 10? Are we doing like
spicy pepper grade?
I was gonna go there. Yeah, the Colville. What's the name of that grade?
Yeah,
whatever.
He says 1 to 10. He wants a 1 to 10.
You did well. I would probably give this a 9.5 just because I don't believe that perfection exists anywhere.
And it's a 10-man league. So, you probably a ton of depth, too. You probably were able to snag yourself at other positions. And you got arguably, obviously, a top 5 wide receiver in Amon-Ra. You got yourself a top 10, maybe 2 top 10 wide receivers in Harrison and London. So, you did yourself good there, sir. Again, we appreciate you all tuning in with us this week. We'll be back next week. Give us a follow over on X. Get in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. Become a Fantasy Alarm member. We'll see you on